on the line here today. If you would get on, you can go ahead to the first slide. We've got a lot of stuff we're going to cover here today. Very excited to introduce a number of new products that are coming out. We're just calling it a mid-year launch. There are actually 5 new products we're going to be announcing and covering here today. We've really broken them up into 2 groups. So first we're going to talk about Wi-Fi 6, or a lot of people know it as 802.11ax, plus some multi-gig switches that we'll be covering. So we're going to be talking about the new R750 Wi-Fi 6 access point and 2 new compact switches, both part of the 7150 family, the C10ZP and the C08. And then we've put the other 2 products together in about fiber connectivity. So we'll be talking about that, how that puts together, and then specifically about a new fiber access switch, the ICX7150-24F, and the new fiber backpack adapter for the H510 access point. So we'll go through all those products for you, try to give you some positioning about where they fit and enough to get you going on those products. We'll wrap up at the end with just sort of a summary of the resources that are going to be available, the timeline of all these products, GA dates, release, etc. And then we'll have a formal Q&A at the end, but if you want to pose questions as we're going along, we have several people online here who can probably answer a number of your questions as we're going along. Okay, so next slide. So really the first part I said is about Wi-Fi 6 and multi-gigabit. And I'd say it's continued because we started this conversation when we introduced the R750 and the ICX7150 48ZP with gigabit connectivity a little over a year ago, or about a year ago. So we really, we're very excited about it. I think, Wi-Fi 6 has gotten a lot of interest. We're seeing a lot of purchase of this. It's being driven certainly by a lot of growth in traffic, a need for more users, more performance, higher density kind of wireless access. Bharat and Babu will talk in more detail about the R750 and Wi-Fi 6. But it's also really important, the fact that if you have a high-performing access point, you also need a high-performance switch to be able to support that. And so multi-gigabit Ethernet is essential because you got an AP that does more than 1 gig. You need something that'll be able to take that through and remove the bottleneck there, as well as switches that can drive higher levels of PoE power to drive the radios and the devices that are necessary to do that. So we're very excited about that. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Babu to start talking about the R750.
Hello, everyone. My name is Babu Pedu, and I'm the product marketing lead for Access Point product line. Hope you are all doing well. Today, I'm going to introduce you to our new indoor access point, which is R750. What is so unique about it? So let's go ahead and look into it, actually. So R750 is our new indoor access point, which is Wi-Fi 6. This is going to be the first Wi-Fi 6 certifiable product. In the past, we had R730, which is also a high-end access point, but it was not certifiable. This is going to be our first Wi-Fi 6 certifiable indoor access point. So R750 comes with 4 special streams, that is 4x4 4 streams for 5 gigahertz and 4x4 4 special streams for 2.4 gigahertz as well. So let's look into the key benefits. The R750 is packed with the Ruckus ultra high density performance. So as you might have already seen in the past, the high density suite comes with very distinct features, that is airtime decongestion, which increases the average network throughput and in heavily congested areas. And the second one is the transient client management. The transient client management reduces the interference in heavily congested areas that are from the unconnected Wi-Fi devices. And the third one is the Beamflex Plus antennas, which provides the extended coverage in heavily trafficked areas. So all these things combined, go back. Yeah. All these three things combined, the R750 provides an exceptional end-user experience within the transit hubs, auditoriums, conference centers, and other high-traffic indoor spaces. So the converged access point, R750 is not a mere access point, it is more than that. So R750 comes with a built-in BLE and ZigBee, and we also have an extended USB port which will allow us to extend to any future wireless technologies like LoRa or whatever that may come. The third key benefit is the enhanced security. R750 is packed with a WPA3, which is the latest security mechanism. Now let's look into some of the key features for R750. Wi-Fi 6 is built for network efficiency. Let's look into the key factors that contribute to the network efficiency. The first, starting with 1024 QAM, that is the quadrature amplitude modulation. This modulation scheme is widely used in the communication industry. It's a digital method, and now we are using it in the Wi-Fi 6 technology. This significantly increases the aggregate throughput and also the data rate by 25%. Uplink and downlink OFDMA. OFDMA is orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. So what this does, OFDMA does is it divides a single channel into multiple sub-channels, and all the packets of different sizes, like 64-bit size or the 128-bit size, they are transmitted simultaneously in all the sub-channels. So in the past, in 11AC, all the data is transmitted in only one single channel, but now we are dividing this channel into sub-channels, and the data is transmitted across all these sub-channels. Uplink and downlink MoMIMO. In 11AC, there was only it was only unidirectional. That means only downlink was possible. But now with Wi-Fi 6, a bidirectional communication is possible with both uplink and downlink, which is very efficient way of communication. BSSID coloring scheme, so it will improve the spatial reuse, which we will look into depth in the upcoming slides. Target wait time, I would say, folks, this is the very key feature in Wi-Fi 6 technology. So what this does, so the TWT mechanism predetermines a wake-up time. It allows the clients and the devices to go into a extended sleep time, and it will also determine a wake-up time as to when and how frequently the clients and devices will wake up to send and receive data. So this will increase the battery life significantly because of the sleep time extension. So most of our vendors, cell phone vendors like Samsung, Apple, they're looking forward very much for this feature. Next, the converged AP. As I mentioned earlier, so we have the BLE and ZigBee integrated, and which will also allow future wireless technologies to be integrated using the USB port. Let's look into the AP specifications a little bit. It comes with 4x4 4 streams, as I mentioned, for both 5 GHz and 2.4 GHz. It's a dual band, dual concurrent, and converged access point. So the number of clients that it can support is 1024 per AP, just like R730. It's a power over Ethernet extension, so it supports PoE 802.380/AF, and we also support DC power with 48 volts DC power. As I mentioned before, it is packed with WPA3, the latest security mechanism. So this is a higher level overview of R750. With this, I will pass it on to Bharat Jaykumar, who will go in depth and which will be more technical of R750. Bharat, here you go.
Thank you, Babu. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So let's walk through some more details of the R750. Okay. So I guess the first question is, why the R750? Why should someone want to buy the R750? And it's a good question, and we believe there are two really broad reasons why, and each of them is pretty important. One is wireless convergence, and the other is Wi-Fi 6. Okay. So let's go through the wireless convergence. What does that actually mean, right? And this is probably, sort of step back, one of the biggest differentiators we have, not just for the R750, but across our entire product line compared to what our competitors can do today. Okay, so here's an analogy that would help to understand what's happening with wireless convergence today. So, we're all old enough to remember when you say a phone growing up, this is what we meant, right? It's that little thing you could pick up and make a call. The thing you carry around in your pocket today, although we call it a phone, it's actually much more than that, right? It's a mini computer or some sort of sophisticated communications device. Why is that? Because it does just so much more than just making a simple phone call, right? You can make a phone call, email, text, browse the web, do a whole lot of other things, right? In the exact same way, if you go back a couple of years, this is a Wi-Fi access point. All it does is Wi-Fi. What we have today in the Ruckus portfolio and with the R750 is a converged access point. Why? For kind of a similar reason, that it talks more than one wireless language. It doesn't just talk Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi is the most common language, but it can talk Bluetooth, it can talk Zigbee, and the question mark over there represents it can talk any other wireless language that is there today and that will be there tomorrow. Now you might be thinking, okay, the R750 has onboard BLE and Zigbee, that's what makes it a converged access point. No, that's actually not correct. It does have onboard BLE Zigbee, that part is correct, but just having built-in BLE and Zigbee does not make something a converged access point. A converged access point is basically, it's an end-to-end architecture that adapts seamlessly to any wireless technology, right? You have a USB port, you can expand to any wireless technology with it, but you need to have an end-to-end architecture to be able to handle this, which is exactly what Ruckus has with our IoT controller and with the entire suite to scale up to any wireless technology. So let me kind of explain why this matters from a customer point of view. So if we look at today's networks, they're actually pretty complicated, and they're kind of unnecessarily so. So if you look at a layered approach to the network, at the very the bottom you have devices and endpoints. Right now we're typically used to phones and laptops and tablets, but that's already started to change, as you might be aware. You have lights, you might have thermostats, you might have door locks, a whole lot of other devices, Internet of Things, if you will, that are connecting to the network, right? That's at the physical layer, if you will. At the very top, you have a bunch of companies who provide a platform and services, right? Now this could be something like Microsoft, Google, IBM, doesn't matter. What these companies essentially do is they take all the data that they're getting from those devices and endpoints at the bottom, extract some information and provide some intelligence to the customer, right? Whether it's figuring out how they can reduce their electricity bills by turning off lights, whether it's maintaining more efficient heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. It could be a whole bunch of other things, right? But how do these two layers actually connect? They connect through a network, and that network today looks pretty complicated. You have a whole bunch of different pipes connecting those endpoints to those services. Whether, Wi-Fi through access points is one of them. You could go through Bluetooth. Some people use Z-Wave. 5G is up and coming. There's LoRa. There's Zigbee. There's a whole lot of things. This leads to a pretty complicated picture for a customer. What we're talking about is simplifying this. And simplifying this by getting rid of all the complexity in that middle layer, taking all those different technologies and having them supported in just one box, right? So kind of simplifies the picture for the customer, so they have just one network that they have to handle when they're connecting these two layers. Let's look at this in a deployment perspective, right? Firstly, you've simplified the whole network. But if you take a look at a typical enterprise deployment, now this is a typical enterprise, but it could be any other kind of customer that you typically work with, right? They have Wi-Fi today, right, with hopefully a Ruckus access point and a Ruckus switch. If you go back a couple of years, there was a lot of push about, hey, locationing is the next big thing, so you need to have a Bluetooth to be able to do better locationing. So great, the customer went out, bought maybe some gateways, did some cabling, got a separate switch because this whole thing is from a separate vendor, and now they're able to do locationing. Now, flash forward a couple of years, connecting stuff like door locks, etc., is the next big thing. For that, you need Zigbee. Okay, so the customer goes out, buys a Zigbee gateway, does some more cabling, buys a switch from a third vendor, and they've connected up Zigbee. But what did the customer actually end up with? They ended up with siloed networks, right? So typically the person doing the Wi-Fi, the company doing the Wi-Fi, the company doing Bluetooth, or the company doing Zigbee can be three very different vendors, right? With their own protocols, own switches, and it's a whole lot of, it's a pretty complicated arrangement. You spent a lot of money in buying three different switches. You spent a lot of money trying to do cabling, and more importantly, the security is going to be completely different, right? A Wi-Fi networking company that's been doing security from day one is very different from a company that, say, makes a door lock or something like that, which may not necessarily be a networking company, right? So the security is very, very different, and as we know, security is very important when it comes to IoT. And at the end of the day, the costs are just extremely high, dealing with three different vendors, and at this point, you're kind of wondering as a customer whether my ROI is really worth it. Now, what can this converged access point, this end-to-end architecture do? It can reduce this complexity by just adding one simple IoT dongle at the bottom over there to the AP. And as you can see, a bunch of the stuff that was on the slide has disappeared, right? So you actually converge your network onto your existing Wi-Fi network. You don't have as many switches from different companies. You have one vendor to deal with. You have a whole lot of less cabling. Your security is unified. Your security now is trusted to the same people you've always been trusting your Wi-Fi data with, right? And of course, your operating cost is a whole lot lower. At the end of the day, you have a converged access network, right? All going through one single box, that's that converged access point. And it's more than just converging your network. It's also the convenience that comes with doing something like that. So this is how it would work for a customer, right? They have an access point. They have a Ruckus access point that they've been relying on for Wi-Fi, right? Now, a new IoT technology comes out, but it could be, maybe it's BLE, maybe it's Zigbee, maybe it's something else in the future, maybe it's LoRa, maybe it's a new technology that hasn't been invented yet. It doesn't matter, right? The customer just gets the IoT module, the USB module that covers that technology, plugs it into the AP, and now they're up and running with any of those new wireless technologies, new IoT technologies that exist. And how can they do this? It's literally as easy as plugging in a USB drive into your laptop. That's it. That's the amount of effort that's required, right? There are no expensive cable pulls, right? It's just plugging in that USB device. There's no loss of revenue during installations. What do I mean by that? I've given an example based on hospitality, but it can apply to pretty much any other scenario. So if you think of a hotel, say a hotel has to deploy a new IoT technology, let's say it's Zigbee. To be able to do that, they need to shut down those rooms because they're going to be doing some cabling in those rooms, which means it's a loss of revenue. people can't book those rooms. At the same time, while construction is going on, people who are living in other rooms in the hotel are going to hear noise, and that's going to result in negative feedback for the hotel, and that's actually a big no in that industry. So not only do you lose revenue, current revenue, you lose future revenue as well. Instead, with this solution, the guest checks out at say 11 o'clock. somebody walks in with the IoT module, plugs it into the AP, and walks out. By the time the next guest checks in, the network is up and running. It's that simple, right? So you can add any new future IoT technology pretty instantly, and that convenience is what this converged AP architecture brings to the table. So we talked about wireless convergence, but let's talk about Wi-Fi 6, right? The other big reason for why R750. So why Wi-Fi 6? Well, firstly, the client ecosystem for Wi-Fi 6 already exists today. Now, for those of you who saw the 11AC Wave 2 ecosystem build up, you know that took a long time. For example, if you're looking at Apple only put in 11AC Wave 2 into their phones maybe a year or so ago, year and a half back. Today, that's changing pretty rapidly. Samsung announced the Galaxy S10 that supports Wi-Fi 6 way back in February, and they're already shipping that product. Right? In fact, if you were to take a Samsung Galaxy S10 phone and look at the Wi-Fi symbol over there, if you're connected to a Wi-Fi 6 network, it'll actually show you. Intel has already announced their Wi-Fi 6 chipsets, and so has HP, the old HP, not HP Enterprise, on their laptops. There are strong rumors that Apple may announce their next iPhone with Wi-Fi 6, given that now Samsung has done the same. So the question is, why are all these client manufacturers suddenly so interested in Wi-Fi 6? And the biggest driver for them is the target wait time feature that exists in Wi-Fi 6. That's the main reason for end devices. And let me show you why they're so excited. So we did some testing for a phone, or the testing was done on a phone, but could apply to any device. The battery life increase due to the target wait time feature is 60 minutes, 1 hour. You can get 1 hour more battery life from your phone by just switching to a Wi-Fi 6 network and using a Wi-Fi 6 phone, right? These tests were done on a Google Pixel, so a pretty mainstream phone. And it wasn't done with light traffic. It was done with extremely heavy traffic loads, as you can see. This was YouTube streaming music, sending or receiving emails, web browsing, stuff you and I normally do every day. So think about it. When you deploy the R750 in a dense scenario like a convention center or something like that, this could be like think of the Consumer Electronics Show, CES, or an equivalent show. You're walking around with your phone, you're visiting multiple booths all day, you're taking pictures, maybe recording videos, sending emails, doing your work. Now imagine at the end of the day your phone is about to run out. Now just dial that back and add 60 extra minutes to that, right? That's the value that Wi-Fi 6 is going to bring to a customer, to a client device, and to the network, right? So this is a very, very good reason for anyone who's really interested in solving density issues to go for Wi-Fi 6 access points. But there's more than just something there for the client, right? So let's kind of see some of the technologies in Wi-Fi 6. Wi-Fi 6 is supposed to be very good for network efficiency. And how does it achieve this network efficiency? Let's take a look at today's network, which is the OFDM. So if you think of each of those trucks on the left as, think of that as a channel, right? You have a 20 megahertz, 40 megahertz, 80 megahertz channel. It doesn't matter. You're sending maybe a very small voice packet to client 1, a big video packet to client 2, and some other data packet to client 3. Well, it doesn't matter that the packet is a small voice packet. It's going to occupy the entire channel or take up that entire truck. Once you put that voice packet in, you can't put in any other packet. Similarly for the video and the data, right? So you send the voice packet off to client 1. You send the video packet to client 2 on a separate transmission, and you send the data packet to client 3 on a third separate transmission. Now this is pretty inefficient because you can see there's a lot of space left on that truck which you could pack together. And that's exactly what the Wi-Fi 6 technology using OFDMA does, right? It just packs all that data in the same channel and sends it off to the 3 different clients. And what we've seen is, we've measured how this looks in dense environments. in dense environments, what we found is 70% of Wi-Fi traffic is small frames. Right? A dense environment is like a typical enterprise environment, something like here at Ruckus or any other enterprise that you could think of around the world. Right? 256 bytes or less is 70% of the Wi-Fi traffic. That's a pretty important insight, as we'll see a couple of slides from now. Another way of looking at OFDMA, a little bit more technical, is you're used to 20, 40, and 80 megahertz channels, right? That's been true from Wi-Fi 5 and a lot of the previous iterations of Wi-Fi. If you take the same truck analogy, you can pack denser and denser streams to clients into that same channel. So you look at the truck at the bottom, you could have maybe 30 different voice clients connected to an AP, and those 30 voice sessions can be packed into the same channel at the same time and sent to all the 30 clients simultaneously. Right? That's what I mean by network efficiency. Right? You can talk to multiple clients simultaneously, and this is actually one of the big advantages of Wi-Fi 6. It also helps solving the short packet problem, right? What is the short packet problem? So if you have a very small packet, think of a voice packet, you have to send a header with every packet, right? The red part over there is the preamble or the header. This is a big overhead. As you can see, 50% of the transmission is just lost in the header. And that's a very inefficient way of communicating with clients, right? With Wi-Fi 6, with OFDMA, you can collapse all the data transmission into kind of maybe one long packet, if you will, with just one header. This is a much more efficient way of transmitting to clients. And like I said, right, dense environments, 70% of Wi-Fi traffic is small frames. So this, this picture over here is actually solving the most common case in an enterprise network. Now that is all on the downlink side. How does Wi-Fi 6 help on the uplink side, right? So if you look at today's network with OFDM, it's what you call a contention-based network, as you're familiar with, right? It's essentially like what the picture you see in the background. It's a big traffic jam. Everybody's trying to get onto the road. There are no real rules. Whoever can get ahead gets ahead. And this is a pretty messy picture, the way uplink is today. With Wi-Fi 6, the picture changes, right? Think of a traffic light. Cars can come and go when, it's a kind of a scheduled access, effectively, right? They can come and go, but only at certain times. And that actually makes for a much more efficient way, a more controlled and coordinated way of handling the spectrum. And that's what Wi-Fi 6 brings on the uplink side as well, which pretty much none of the previous Wi-Fi technologies bring. Okay, so we talked about Wi-Fi 6, we talked about target wait time, uplink and downlink OFDMA, which are some of the main value adds of Wi-Fi 6. Now let's take a look at some of the competitor information. And before we jump to competition, let's just look within the Ruckus portfolio. So where does the R750 fit within the Ruckus portfolio, right? So a good analogy is if you look at our better tier, we have two different APs there. The R610, which is a slightly higher tier than the R510, right? Although they're both meant for medium density deployments. In the exact same way, R750 and R730 now exist in the best tier, right? The R730, which you are familiar with, has no predecessor in the Ruckus portfolio, right? It's an 8-stream AP. We've never built an 8-stream AP before. So the R730 is at the very, very high end of the best tier. The R750, which we're talking about today, one, it's a successor to the R710 and R720 access points. Right? So that's one easy way to kind of map it in your head. And it's kind of at the lower end of that best tier. Right? Let's take another look at comparisons between R750 and R730. Now, as you know, so firstly, R750 is Wi-Fi 6 certifiable, right? It's completely Wi-Fi 6 certifiable from day one. R730 is compatible with a lot of the Wi-Fi 6 features, but it is not Wi-Fi 6 certifiable. Now, does that mean that no one needs an R730 now that there's an R750? Not at all, right? It kind of depends on the customer and the use case. Why? Think of a customer who needs to solve a very high density problem, right? Think of a stadium or a large convention center or something like that. Solving the density problem is the most important thing for that customer. So having one 8-stream AP as compared to two 4-stream APs makes much more sense for them, right? So certification is important, but not as important to them as solving the density problem. And having that higher density scenario for an R730 also comes with other paths you have to add to your network, which not all customers necessarily are, keen on doing, right? To support an 8-stream R730, you need a 5 gig backhaul port, which means you need a switch that can do that, right? Which is great for a customer if they're willing to kind of change their network. Like I said, if they're trying to solve a very high density problem, that makes sense. But that doesn't necessarily make sense for all customers. So if you're just happy with a 2.5 gig port switch, and you can, that's what you'd need for an R750. Similarly, powering considerations, right? R750 just needs 802.3 AT power for full functionality, whereas R730 needs more than AT power for full functionality. That's also a choice a customer would have to make. And finally, there is a list price difference between the two. The R730 is priced at $1,695 US list price, and the R750 is $1,395 US. Now, let's take a look at the competitive scenario against our competitors out there. As you can see, the R750 kind of does a whole lot better than the competition out there. Now, if you've seen Ruckus APs in the past, this is not a surprise to you. Ruckus APs do outperform pretty much any other AP out there when it comes to just the quality of the AP itself. Now, one thing I'd like to point out in this test is that this test firstly is only in 5 gigahertz and not 2.4. And the reason for that is the Aruba AP that we used to compare. We used the Aruba 515 because a couple of weeks back when we did this testing, the Aruba 530 still, although it was announced, it still wasn't shipping. And the Aruba 515 is a 2-stream AP in 2.4 gig, so it wouldn't be a fair comparison to compare the R750 to it, right? But just doing better in speeds and feeds, while that is important, what is more important is for a customer is to do well where it matters for the customer, right? And like I said earlier, 70% of enterprise traffic is 256 bytes or less. And if you look at the R750, that's where it really shines, right, compared to the other APs. It is able to, kind of optimize for the small packet scenario, and this is really optimizing the network in kind of the majority use case, right? And by the way, all this is, in terms of software, we haven't even turned on the Wi-Fi 6 features yet. This is just the raw R750, the way Ruckus has architectured and engineered it, that's able to outperform our competitors, right? When you turn on Wi-Fi 6 features, this is only going to get even better. Now, a quick comparison chart. I'm not going to go through line by line. Firstly, the R7, these are the competitor APs to the R750. And like I mentioned before, the R750 is Wi-Fi 6 certifiable from day one. They're all 4-stream APs. Most of them have onboard BLE and Zigbee, support around 1,000 clients, which is good. But there's a couple of things which Ruckus does which others just cannot do. One is, of course, BeamFlex, and you're familiar with BeamFlex. But the other thing, like I mentioned at the start of the presentation, is the converged end-to-end AP architecture, right? Having the converged end-to-end AP architecture makes a very, very big difference. It solves a problem from end to end, which is not something any of our competitors are able to do today, because they simply don't have that kind of solution, the way at least Ruckus has architectured it. That's a very, very important point of difference when you're looking to solve a customer problem. Okay, some miscellaneous information. This is more for your reference. So firstly, well, this is, I guess, a little bit more in detail. Who are the target markets for the R750? And if you were to break it down, there are 3 main target markets that we can think of. One is K through 12 education, right? Anywhere you need solving density problems, R750 is the perfect AP. right? Education is a very, very good use case. Dense classrooms with a lot of clients. R750 is the perfect AP for that, right? Transit hubs, and this could be airports, this could be train stations or any other kind of transit hubs where customers they need that high density solution, but they don't necessarily have the ability to upgrade all of their infrastructure to what, say, an 8-stream AP would require. R750 is a perfect AP for that. Similarly for hospitality, right? You need convention centers and common areas where you need to solve density problems. R750 is the perfect AP for that. A quick look at the R750, you'll notice a couple of differences compared to previous Ruckus APs. One is the Ruckus name is on top of the AP, which is, I think, a good thing. And of course, it's kind of gray at the bottom, so that's a little bit sleeker look and kind of makes the R750 look, a little bit more compact when it's hanging up on the ceiling, and that's always a good thing when you're deploying this at a customer. In terms of software support, it's coming out on SmartZone and Zone Director on day 1. So it'll be SmartZone, it's release 5.1.1 new AP model. So 5.1 is already out, so it'll just be a new AP model patch. And on Zone Director, it'll be on release 10.3 as a new AP model, right? Unleashed and Cloud, there will be support, just not on day 1. Please stay tuned. We will give you more updates as to when and which releases in Unleashed and Cloud R750 will be supported on. Accessories, this is all stuff you guys should be familiar with because these aren't any new accessories. These are stuff that's on our price list already. The plastic T-bar bracket ships in the box, but there are other accessories for DC power, for PoE, and for additional mounting options as well. Again, this stuff is more for your reference. It will be on the July price list, so you should be able to see it there. The R750, as I mentioned before, comes at a list price of $1395 US. In terms of our support, it's a standard 1, 3, and 5-year support. So it's nothing new over here. Again, this will be in our price list. And the accessories are the same things I showed a couple of slides back. These are accessories that are already on our price list. So, this is the information for that. In terms of country certification, the different countries are on different dates. So at GA, obviously we'll have the US and Europe certification as well as a few other countries. For other, for the remaining countries, these are the dates. The best place to look up country certification is in the partner portal. We have not just which countries an AP is certified in, we also have the actual certification itself. So if you ever need that, that is available to you. And finally, a couple of notes on the launch schedule. So, we're having the webinar today, and today is when we're publicly announcing the R750. So if you go on the Ruckus website, you'll see a data sheet. You'll start to, over the next week or so, you'll start to see other collateral appear on the Ruckus website. So it's publicly launched. We'll have another webinar for our APAC partners on July. The important date to note here is the 16th of August. That's when we start shipping the R750 to customers. So you can start placing POs and orders for the R750 starting today, but we will start shipping the R750 only around August 16th. My last slide here. So again, why R750? I'd like to leave you with that. Like I said, wireless convergence, it's a pretty powerful way we have architected it end to end, and that's a very, very big differentiating factor for R750 and the entire Ruckus AP portfolio. And of course, Wi-Fi 6 with its benefits to clients and benefits to the network as well. With that, I'll hand this over to Rick.
Okay, thank you, Bharat. Thanks for giving us a good overview of the R750. So I'm going to follow up with the new switches that we're going to be introducing. First, a couple of new compact switches. So, sorry, somebody have the...
Yeah, I have it all.
Okay, I'm now the presenter. What do you know? Okay, so if you're going to have a Wi-Fi 6 AP like the R750 or an R730, you really need a multi-gigabit switch to do that. So we are announcing the ICX 7150, the C10ZP. If you're familiar with their nomenclature, C for compact, 10 is the number of ports. The Z designates it is a multi-gigabit switch. That's for the 802.3BZ standard, and P meaning it's PoE. So what do we got? We've got, it's a 10-port switch. All 10 ports are multi-gigabit. So 2 of them will allow you to do up to 10 gigabits. Both of them will support up to 90 watts of PoE power out of the 2 ports. Plus another 8 ports, all of which support up to 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. Of those 8, 2 of them also support up to 90 watts of PoE power, and the other 6 support PoE plus 30 watts power, is all you really need for an R750. And it also supports PoE overdrive, which is a Ruckus proprietary protocol for being able to drive additional power, particularly for APs like the R730 and such as the R730, which can do just a little bit better if it has a little bit more power. So it can drive up to 45 watts to a Ruckus AP. As with all the rest of our compact switches, it's fanless. So that means you get silent operation. So if you want to put it in a classroom, a retail environment, an office, someplace out of closet, it's a perfect environment. And it is part of the 7150 family. So all of the features and capabilities and management you're familiar with the other ICX 7150 switches applies to this compact switch as well. So what do we need it for? This is, I think, a very interesting new switch. So as I said, it's multi-gigabit. I'll compare the other switches we have, but one of the things is this really provides some interesting opportunities, particular places where you just need, a small number of Wi-Fi 6 APs. So perfect example might be a school where you have a lot of R510s and R610s in classrooms, but you want something like the R750 for an auditorium, the cafeteria, or ballroom in a hotel, and you just need a small number of ports that support multi-gigabit capability. This is perfect. It's a great way to do, sort of try out multi-gigabit. I know I've talked to a number of partners and customers who are still kind of on the fence of, do I really need multi-gigabit? I sort of deemed it as a multi-gigabit sampler, a way to be able to get just a few ports. And by the way, don't forget, this can stack with the rest of the ICX 7150 family. So if, for example, you have a closet and connecting a number of APs like R510s and R610s and just have a couple of R750s, you could connect them into this multi-gigabit switch, stack them with the 7150s, and then also take advantage of the higher number of 10 gigabit uplink ports off of those to get excellent throughput. So as I said, it's going to be a great opportunity in any kind of environment where you just need a small number of ports with multi-gigabit capability. I think it's very well positioned. We don't have a lot of competition in this space. So I qualify here as the enterprise class competitors. There are some other some of the more SMB competitors that have these, but Cisco's the only company that has another multi-gig switch, and it's actually on older models. So it's not as powerful as the C10ZP. So I think we have a great product here. I'm very excited about it. I think it's very well positioned in our portfolio and against the competitors to give you some opportunities. So let's take a look at today. With the advent of this switch, we now have 3 different switches that support multi-gigabit capabilities. So if you hopefully familiar with the other 2, but the top of the line, the premier multi-gigabit switch is the ICX 7650/48ZP. So if you really had, high density, you want a lot of ports, you want the highest performance, future-proofing, then the 7650/48ZP is really your switch. It has a large number of it has 24 multi-gigabit, all capable of doing 2.55 or even 10 gigabit off of that switch. So if you need future-proofing capability, that's your switch. At the other end, the other switch we've had for quite a while is the ICX 7150/48ZP. That's really a great affordable option for multi-gigabit. It supports up to 2.5 gig only, but it's got 16 ports of that. It also supports up to 90 watts of PoE power on all those multi-gigabit ports. The compact kind of fits in the middle there. So for small deployments, if you need, we actually have a number of schools that have bought a number of these to be able to put these compact switches in their high-performance switches for high-performance APs and high-performance workstations in classrooms. You know, it's the multi-gigabit. So again, if you just need a couple that need 5 gig, you can do it, but up to 10 ports of multi-gigabit capability, all of which support PoE Plus or higher, and up to 90 watts of power on that. So it's a great option if you need a few. We've got the list prices on the switches here, so you can see, you know, especially if you just need a few ports, you want to try out multi-gigabit and see if it really works and makes a big difference for you. It's a great way to do it at an affordable price. So I think it gives you a lot. As I said, it is the new multi-gigabit switch is part of the 7150 family. So it stacks to 12 units, supports stack ISSU. It's all managed by SmartZone. So I think it's a great option. And now you as a partner have 3 different options of ways to be able to deliver multi-gigabit connectivity for your customers. Okay, so let's also just compare the compact switches. So hopefully you're familiar. We've had for a long time the 12-port compact. It's, you know, broadly used, a lot of out-of-closet uses, you know, for any APs that only support, you know, 1 gigabit throughput. Most of the Wi-Fi 5 APs, it's a great solution. The multi-gig, you know, clearly, if you need multi-gigabit capability, this is a switch. I think the comparison is pretty straightforward for you. As I said, it does, and it supports double the PoE power and a lot of the same capabilities. The other switch we are introducing at the same time is a new 8-port switch. It is, you know, an entry-level compact. It only has 8 ports. It is only 1 gigabit connections. And it is only layer 2. It does not support any layer 3 capability. So you can see the specs here. It's you know, designed. It's particularly for cases, I think, where price is the #1 criteria. So you know, as I said, it has basic connectivity, PoE Plus. It has a limited budget, but it is managed by SmartZone. It is also silent. But as I said, it does not. The 8-port is not stackable. Supports only layer 2 and only 1 gigabit, and that includes only 1 gigabit uplinks. Both the 12 and the 10-port support 10 gigabit uplinks out of those. And then if you'll see, you know, I think in most cases, the difference between the 8 and the 12 is not a big price difference, and it gives you a lot more capability. So I think in most cases where you're considering a compact switch, I think the 12-port probably makes a better sense. But as I said, in places where you're in a competitive situation and price is an ultimate criteria, then you now have the 8-port as a good option. So that's our compact switches. I'm going to continue talking and switch hats here and now talk about the fiber connectivity, that sort of the second part of our introductions. So the other thing we're introducing is a new fiber access switch, also part of the 7150. First of all, just sort of for, you know, sort of for background, if you think about the way fiber is used, in most cases, you'll see fiber connectivity between switches, so between the access switches and core and aggregation. You know, most commonly people are, and we're using copper to connect to at the access to either end user devices or to access points is typically copper Ethernet. The reason you use fiber is it supports much longer distances. In general, copper really is limited to 100 meters. So if you need to go long distances, more than 100 meters, and particularly when you need to go higher speeds, you want to go 10, 25, 40 gigabit, you're typically using fiber connectivity. Copper links are limited to 10 gigabit, and with that you need, I think you need like Cat 7 cabling, which is fairly rare. If it's only Cat 5 or Cat 6, it's typically limited to more like 2.5 gig. So again, fiber used particularly between switches where you need longer distances or higher speeds. The other use case is there is some case for fiber at the access level. Typically, it's a couple of situations. The most common is distance, when you need to go longer distances. A lot of our outdoor APs, for example, you see have fiber connectivity because they are more than 100 meters from the switch. It's also you might have a desktop switch and do fiber connections, particularly if you want higher speed connections. So there are some situations where fiber connectivity makes sense at the access level. So that's really, the distinction here and where we think this particular switch will fit as a fiber access switch. So we're introducing the 7150-24F. If you look at the family of fiber switches available from Ruckus, we start at the high end with the ICX 7850, which was introduced earlier this year as our very high-end, large core data center aggregation switch, supporting speeds up to 100 gigabits on the downlinks. And as we go down the portfolio, so the 7850, which really is a, successor to the 7750, with sort of a next generation 7750 with higher performance. At the mid-range, the ICX 7650 is a great switch that supports up to 10 gigabit aggregation for sort of medium. Our connectivity with 1 gigabit fiber has been the 7450-48F, and it still is. We think it's a good solution, but now we're introducing a 24-port fiber access switch. Again, 24 ports, part of the 7150 family. I'll go through a little bit of detail for 1 gigabit connections. So again, if you need fiber access and more, price aggressive solution, this is good. Should keep in mind, if you go to the 7450, first of all, you're getting twice as many ports. You're going from 24 to 48 ports. The other thing that the 7450 offers you is it does support dual power supplies and fans, which are hot swappable. So if you need something with higher reliability, 7450 is still a great solution. But for those price situations where you need a small number of fiber ports, and price is an important consideration, which of course it always is the 7150-24F. So let's take a quick look at that. As I said, we're announcing the 7450-24F. It is 24 ports of SFP 1 gig ports for downlinks. As with the rest of the 7150 family, it has 4 uplink ports, which can be up to 10 gigabits SFP plus ports. It supports layer 2, layer 3, RIP and OSPF. There's a layer 3 license available. As I said, it's part of the 7150, so you actually can stack it with 7150 access switches as well. So it is an enterprise class fiber access switch. We think it's a great solution. We'll talk a little bit more as we talk about our companion piece in the Wi-Fi connectivity about delivering fiber to the room. So we think it's a great product and competes very well in this market space. And if I remember correctly, it's not my second to last slide. Just a quick look. We think it's an interesting switch. I'm not going to go through the detail of the comparison with our competitors, but leave it to say, I think in this niche, particularly in the fiber access, we don't have a lot of competition from our enterprise competitors. Cisco's got one, but it's really their SMB line, which does not, it's only got 1 gig uplinks. It's only got static layer 3. I think that the 7150 can really outperform it with the 10 gig uplinks and with a layer 3 capability. So it's kind of uniquely positioned in the market, and I think it has some very interesting implications. So with that, speaking of implications and use cases, I'm going to turn this over to Brady to talk about the fiber backpack.
Thank you, Rick. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for patiently listening on 3 different products so far. This will be the last, I promise. So before I begin, let me start off by reviewing what all was covered so far. First, we started off with R750, which is our newest 11AX AP. and all the cool converged AP related features that come with it. Then Rick talked about ICX7150, which is our compact switch, and the story on the solution of multi-gig and how these two go together. Then Rick introduced the ICX7150 fiber switch. Now I'm going to talk about fiber backpack, which goes well with the ICX7150 fiber switch. All right, let me begin this story of fiber. And remember, all the things that I'm covering, me and Rick covered about the ICX7150 fiber switch. These are specifically for fiber-ready properties. Think of a customer who already has invested in fiber infrastructure and is looking to provide access of Wi-Fi in the room with fiber. Now, with that in context, how does fiber to the room look today? The first block is the fiber infrastructure. That is what I talked about, is a customer deployment where fiber is already ready and deployed. Then in the room in which they want to provide Wi-Fi, they need to connect a other device called ONT, an optical network terminal, to convert fiber to copper and connect in turn to the access point for Wi-Fi. This is how it is today. And what does it mean and how does it look in the room? These two pictures should literally paint a picture in your mind. The first one, that is a big black ONT box. Second one, there are disparate boxes. One of the white one below is the ONT box. So what this leads to is two distinct devices and sort of an unnecessary cable jungle with more cables looking outside, which might be something that hospitality properties might specifically be not very comfortable with, because they want the rooms to be aesthetically pleasing. And finally, this is a biggie, is it makes it a little bit harder to mount whether to a ceiling or to a wall, because you're talking about two devices here instead of one device. And now, with this problem in the mind, let me talk to you about the Ruckus Fiber Backpack. Ruckus Fiber Backpack, this is how it looks like. It has a fiber enclosure, an SFP cage in which you can insert wide variety of SFPs, and we have qualified a bunch of them for you. And there is an RJ45 converter as well. And this provides power as well. And what does all this mean is, this attaches directly to the H510 AP, which is our existing leading hospitality AP, and convert the fiber to copper very easily and in an aesthetically pleasing manner. And this attaches to the H510 almost unnoticeably. And this is where you can see how it's all coming together. The first one is the H510. The second block that's mentioned in the picture is the fiber backpack, and the last is an accessory that comes with H510, the H510 wall bracket. All these get together and become a single unified device that can be attached onto the wall. The first picture that I showed, where there are two disparate devices, they are becoming one with the introduction of the Ruckus Fiber Backpack. What does all this mean? Why you should be going for Ruckus Fiber Backpack? Let me summarize all that for you. The first primary reason is utility. The Ruckus Fiber Backpack supports any type of fiber. I mean, it could be a PON, an active fiber. It supports both the type of fiber, and we have, as I've already mentioned, we have qualified a bunch of SFPs already for you. You can use any of them based on the existing deployment. And the fiber backpack makes the deployment as well very easy. There are access holes for terminal block screws, which makes the supply of power really easy. I mean, in the first one of the pictures that I showed where there are 3 boxes, the deployment becomes very easy there. And in addition, the RJ45 port that's in the fiber backpack also provides power over Ethernet to the H510 access point. And all these come within the small carved out shell within the fiber backpack, which makes, again, the deployment very easy. And the second big bucket is the perfect fit. What does that mean is there's no more cable jungle. All the two primary cables, one is related to the fiber to the copper media conversion and one related to power. Those are both hidden within the shell of the fiber backpack. And what this means is this is preserving the room aesthetics and making it easy to securely mount the combined device onto the wall or to the ceiling. And this makes deployment of, and this is custom built for H510, so it makes it a perfect match for the H510. All right, this brings me to the conclusion of the fiber backpack story. Now let me wrap it up with what it means with fiber to the access as well as room by combining the information related to the 7150 fiber switch as well as the fiber backpack. First up, the Ruckus advantage in hospitality or the multi-dwelling units with respect to fiber to the room. Here, think of any hotel or MDU that has already invested in fiber and or is looking to invest in fiber. You don't need to look behind. You don't need to look behind anything other than Ruckus. At the access layer, you can stack up the ICX 7150 aggregation switches, and again, there are different models available. Your 24-port fiber as well as the 48-port fiber. As shown in this picture, I mean, based on the total number of floors or total number of rooms that you need to support, you could have a few 48F or 24F ports in each of the floors, and then can provide Wi-Fi in each of the rooms with H510 along with the backpack. And again here, in case there is a requirement for, say, copper, like one of the floors where, one of the newly coming floors where fiber is not deployed, you could use a ICX compact switch and directly connect H510s there. And what does this mean with respect to switches? On the left side, this is a turnkey, cost-effective fiber to the room solution. Here, you're future-proofing your solution in comparison to, say, some of the GPON solutions that are available. Because with GPON, you're really not able to achieve the future bandwidth requirement needs. With the advent of 4K, the GPON might not be able to support the streaming requirement or the overall bandwidth requirement for your property. And you can uniquely position the fiber access switch for hospitality companies that are invested in fiber. And in addition, because of the introduction of fiber backpack, which is a custom fit, easy to deploy fiber converter for H510AP, you have a perfect solution at the access as well as fiber to the room. And again, I'm reiterating the benefit of the fiber backpack. This eliminates the need for the ONT in every room, reducing the overall costs as well as all the other benefits that I've just mentioned. Finally, these are the final key takeaways. What does the fiber to the room solution mean? And what are its elements? The first point, there is a backpack which goes along very well with the H510 and alleviates a lot of deployment installation related problems and reduces the overall cost. And the second is a fiber switch lineup that's expanded with introduction of new fiber switch. And finally, although we are talking a lot about fiber in the latter half of the webinar, Ruckus has you covered for any type of physical medium that the customer has, be it copper, fiber, or even the CMTS coax. We have access points available for every physical medium, and we have switches, a wide variety of switches available for fiber as well as copper medium. So yeah, we are providing based on what your customer needs are, you have a wide variety of products to choose from. And let me hand this over to Rick, who began the presentation, to close it off.
The beginning and ending. Okay, thank you very much. So I know we covered an awful lot of material here today. We covered a lot about Wi-Fi 6, and we're very excited about expanding our portfolio there. Now we had the R730, now we also give you another option with the R750. And the multi-gigabit area that you need to do Wi-Fi 6. Again, now we're giving you a compact switch to go with the other two multi-gigabit switches we've had, which give you a range of options to fit. And then on the other aspect, particularly geared for hospitality, but not exclusively, new fiber to the room solution with the new fiber access switch and the backpack for the H510, but just broadening our portfolio of fiber connectivity. So let's just talk quickly about the timeline. I've seen a number of questions, but all three models of the ICX 7150 are on our price list today. You can place orders for them, and they are scheduled to be shipping in July. I think in the front half of the month of that. The R750, it will be on the price list in July, orderable then, and we're targeted to ship it starting August 16th. The fiber backpack for the H510 will also be on the July price list. It will be orderable in July as well, and it will also GA at the end of July. All of the information and all the products we talked about today are on the partner portal today, as well as some information on the public website available today. So, that information should be there. Trying to think about what else for you to do. So I think that kind of wraps up our presentation. I know we've been answering a lot of the questions during this webinar. I guess we could see if we have a little bit more time to answer some of our questions. Certainly appreciate everybody hanging into this lengthened webinar today.
All right. So we do have quite a few questions, so I'll read the ones that have not been answered first, and then we can get to the ones that have been answered already. So someone says, are the new compact switches also added to the demo price list for Ruckus partners?
That is a good question. I do not know the answer to that one. I assume they should be. I'll have to check on that.
Okay, so we do have all your names.
They're not shipping yet, so.
Yeah, that's true. So we do have all your names and emails, so if we don't have the answer right now, we can definitely follow up.
Yep, we'll have to do that.
And then Ross says, will there be a fiber backpack for the H320?
Currently no, but know that the existing backpack can be used for other APs as well, apart from H510. But it fits, although it fits perfectly with H510, it can be used with other APs.
Okay.
Just not as aesthetically pleasing.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So it would be usable for a H310, for example?
Yes, H320, okay. Yes.
And then someone else says, if I want to mount a H510 together with a fiber backpack to a wall, do I still need the H510 wall mount bracket?
I would assume yes. You need, in the end, you're adding the H510 wall mount bracket, as I mentioned in the picture. Yes. That would be the end of the...
It comes between the H510 and...
It comes at the end of the H510 and the fiber backpack.
Okay. And then, these have been answered. Let's see. Wow, there are a lot of questions.
Yes.
Can I have a port WAN in the switch L3? Not.
I'm not sure I understand. Mike, do you?
Well, for those of you who are familiar, I guess this was asking a question. For those of you who are familiar with the layer 3 are the routing protocols that supported on the 7150. So all the 7150 switches that we talked about today, actually except for the C08P. So there's the C10ZP as well as the 24F that we talked about today. The layer 3 or the routing functionality is the same as all of the other ICX 7150 switches that we have. I don't know if that helps answer your question. So you know the capabilities and the way that the features are used are exactly the same. Please, if that doesn't answer the question, please follow up again with the maybe with a response, and we'll see if that helps.
Okay. And then, is this the switch the Leonard Homes will be using?
It is not today. I can't say anything about what they might do in the future.
Okay.
Today they are purchasing our 12-port compact switch. I'm not aware of any changes in the agreement.
Okay. And then Ross asked about IB Wave VEX files. He asked if they're available for new access points.
Yeah, so Ross, when we come with the new access points, we do work with IB Wave to update their files. I don't believe the R750 is there yet, but we will be updating the R750 pretty quickly. You should see it around the time of GA. We provide that information to IB Wave, and then they take some time to turn it around, but they're generally pretty quick about it. So we'd expect to see it by GA. If there is any other particular AP that you believe is missing, please do let me know, and we can work with IB Wave very quickly on addressing that.
Okay. And then Brandon says, in the converged AP, I saw LTE as an option to the 750. Is the CBRS band available within that AP?
Right, that's a good question. No, the CBRS band is not available within the 750, but we do have, as you know, a set of CBRS access points we call the Q series, and those are specially purpose-built for CBRS. Many of them can be mated quite nicely with a lot of our APs. So when you deploy them on the ceiling, it's kind of aesthetically pleasing, and also it just looks like one kind of longer AP, right? So that's what I meant by the CBRS being kind of supported along with that AP. But there is no CBRS inside the R750 itself.
Thank you. And then next question, can you share some information on how the radio handles BLE and Wi-Fi traffic simultaneously? What role does beamflex and channel-fly play in high-density environments where both technologies are used?
Right, so that's a good question. I can give you more details offline. It's not something I can address very quickly here, but I will say that there is, they are kind of compatible and they coexist pretty well, which is how we've designed it, as you'd expect for an onboard solution, even for the connected solution through the USB. If you were to add some other technology in the future, they work pretty well as well. As to the in-depth technical details, I'm happy to share that offline perhaps, but safe to say that it is compatible and will work with Wi-Fi.
Okay. And then some of the other questions from chat. Does the R750 have multi-gig Ethernet?
Yes, it does. R750 has has two ports. One 2.5 gig Ethernet port, which does PoE input as well, and 1 gig Ethernet port. So yes, it does support multi-gig Ethernet.
Okay, and then Carlos said both support WPA3, but I'm...
Yes,
okay.
WPA3 comes inbuilt with the access point.
And then another long question. With the advent of 5G-enabled LPWA design specifically for IoT, it seems this will render on-prem IoT gateways and wireless obsolete. The longer-term vision is the network is indeed simplified and unified, but at a service provider and telecom level. What might the role of the R750 be in this scenario?
It's a good question. So, that's you can have an entire webinar on that, but I'll just, give you a couple of points to think about. Yes, 5G solves a lot of problems, but there are a couple of things to keep in mind. One, 5G is run by telcos, And, we have unlimited data plans today, but that doesn't mean everybody stopped using Wi-Fi. Telcos' data plans come with throttles and, caps, which you don't get with a Wi-Fi solution. That's one. Secondly, Wi-Fi is very good indoors as well as outdoors, whereas cellular networks typically are better outdoors, and you just need to step into an elevator to see how bad that can get. I'm not saying that means 5G is bad. I'm just saying those are genuine challenges to keep in mind. And thirdly, with 5G, like as you mentioned yourself, telcos are the ones who are running it. So essentially, as a company, you would have to, at some level, hand over your network, your controller, and management of your network completely to the telcos. You would not necessarily have the level of control you do today with a controller, with a switch, with your own network, which is what a Wi-Fi-based network will provide. We believe that they will both coexist and they solve different problems. And one last thing is, I think today 70% of wireless traffic all over the world is Wi-Fi. And the remaining is cellular and other technologies. So there's a strong deployment and adoption of Wi-Fi that's been there for the last 20 years. So there are a lot of factors at play.
Thank you. And the next question, what's the total PoE budget on the 7150 C10VP switch?
That's a total of 240 watts, which is double that of the 12-port.
And then Carlos said, where do you put the 24-port switch? I'm not sure what that's referring to. I
don't know what that question would be. I mean, it's a standard.
That means what are the deployment scenarios?
It's a rack mount switch, so any place you would. But beyond that, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay. And then, so Carlos, if you're still online, you can put in some clarifications and we can get that answered. Jeff says, is the R750 supported on Zone Director?
Yes, R750 will be supported on Zone Director. It will be coming out on Zone Director release 10.3 with a new AP model patch. Okay.
And then Tom asks, can you please elaborate on the lack of Wi-Fi certification of the R730 as compared to the R750? And Ruckus's plans are to communicate to R730 customers about what that would mean to them.
Right. So we have been communicating this on the R730. R730 is Wi-Fi 6 compatible. It has a lot of the Wi-Fi 6 features. It has OFDMA, target wait time, MU-MIMO. The certification is a different matter. This is actually something that's true for many APs in the industry that are Wi-Fi 6 compatible without being certifiable. This is true for the high-end Cisco, the high-end Meraki, and the R730 as well. But as I mentioned in the webinar, certification is one thing. Solving the density problems is a different thing. It kind of varies on what your customer is looking for, right? And this is something we've been communicating with the R730. But like I mentioned, it has a lot of the Wi-Fi 6 features. It does definitely have the higher speeds, the MCS 11 rates. So you will see a lot of benefits with R730 as well.
Okay. So it looks like that was all the questions. So we'll stay online for just a couple more minutes in case someone comes up with something, and we'll just answer it in the window. But thank you everyone for joining. Thank you Rick, Brady, Bharat, Babu, and Michael for being here, presenting and answering all of your questions. And I hope everybody has a fantastic day.
Thanks everyone.